Well, hello there and welcome. Thank you for joining me on this particular live stream. You know, the last couple of days have been so heavy in that there's reports coming out. Of course, we know that this is a season of exposure, that God has been bringing exposure to hidden sins. I've shared oftentimes in my book, Prophetic Manifesto for a New Era, that God revealed back in 2019 that we're coming into an era of exposure based on Ezekiel 8, where God took Ezekiel in and showed him abominations that were taking place in the hidden places of the temple, and that these were going to be revealed. And then when Ezekiel saw them, the Lord said, and there's even worse things than this, right? And so we've been walking through the last 5 years of one exposure after another. And I know it's painful for all of you to see what's happening behind the scenes, to have these things brought out. It's hard. Some of you that are watching right now, you've actually been victims of the abuse, either the clergy abuse, sexual abuse, inappropriate behaviors, feeling like you didn't have a voice. And I just want to say right up front that it takes a lot of courage to speak out as a victim. And I want to celebrate your courage for those of you that did come forward, and bless you. And also knowing that in this season, God has raised up whistleblowers and raised up journalists, investigative journalists, to be able to bring items forward that maybe would not have been brought forth otherwise. And so we are very grateful for that. And these are coming forth now in investigative reports. And the Mike Bickle statement that just came out through the Firefly investigation, 68 pages of description of numerous things that were going on, of victims, of cover-ups by staff, and going on for a long time. And I know that as a church, we have to pray that God will show us what to do in the future to make things safer, and that we would be stronger and be able to discern these things and take heed to them. And if you are a leader, I just want to say this: if you are a minister, you cannot live a double life, and you cannot transgress. You are there to serve the people of God. We are called to be holy as his messengers, as those who serve others. And in Malachi 2, there's a stern warning for the priests who are violating the commandments of the Lord and not behaving as they should, saying that their blessings will be turned into curse even. And in the New Testament, we see Jesus speaking about, if you cause a little one to stumble, it would be better for you to be thrown into the sea with a heavy weight around your neck, in other words, drowned in it, than to offend or hurt one of these little ones. So that's how serious these things are. And we need to take these things seriously. And God is exposing. I wish I could say this is the end of the exposure, but there is more coming. I do want to say also, as I've shared previously, that I'm also carrying a warning from the Lord about, as he's continuing to expose, there's also another thing happening, and that is that the accuser of the brethren is coming with fury and is going to connect with, Leviathan, which is, let me just explain what I mean, confusion, twisted communication, and that is going to happen too, to try to divide the body. And I know some people have questioned me or commented and said, hey, who are you accusing? Well, I'm not accusing anyone. I just feel like the Lord's giving us a warning so that we can do our job well and without taking on an accusative heart, but speak the truth in love and be strong and uncompromised in it, but without accusation. and without that critical, bitter spirit at work, because that is not the nature of God. And, some people have said, well, that should be accusing the accusers, or the ones who are accusing the victims. That word's for them. Listen, I think it's for everyone, that we are on guard as the church. Jesus said, they will know that you're my disciples by the love that you have for one another. And God is love. So anything that he is doing through any individual is going to be loving. So someone who's abusing someone behind the scenes for their own purposes, that is not love. And that needs to be addressed. That needs to be confronted. Someone has said, well, I'm not going to love, like a pedophile should be in jail. Absolutely, I agree. And that, I think, is the most loving thing for society and for the pedophile. The most loving thing, to keep them from hurting anyone else. It's loving to them to do that. And a lot of times we think love is just all mushy gushy, and we'll just turn our face away from that and not bother looking at it. No, love has a strong voice. Love will be an advocate for those who don't have a voice for themselves. Love will rescue. Love will speak strong words, but not out of human anger, not out of a bitter heart, because it says if there's a root of bitterness, it's going to defile many. So I want to celebrate those of you who are standing for justice and who are not backing down. But I am going to ask all of you who are in that place to make sure it is the love of God that is compelling you. And also, a lot of things we assume are completed. Like, of course, after an investigation, when everything comes forward and it's properly investigated and the statement is made, that is the strongest place to be able to address things, to bring healing, to bring all those things, because it's a completed process. So in the process, as these things are being worked out, we do need to be careful that we're not losing it with an attitude, with anger, with judgment, with criticism, because it's just different from the way Jesus operates. And God wants truth, and he wants righteousness. In fact, righteousness and justice are the foundation of the throne. And yet, when we look at the cross of Jesus Christ, he died for all people. He died for even the most vile sinner on the planet. He shed his blood so that that one could be saved, could be delivered, could be rescued. And that needs to be our heart. If there are abuse victims, they need to be rescued. They need to be delivered. They need to be healed. They need to be nurtured. They need to be saved. This is the love of God. This is what Jesus did on the cross. But you know what? He also died for the perpetrator. You might not like that, but he actually did. And he wants them out of the grip of the enemy. He wants a miracle to come into their heart. I'm not saying that's going to happen to everyone, but he did the work to enable them to receive that work if they will take it. Everything in the New Testament has this redemptive purpose in it, a redemptive thread. And we have to intercede for everyone to be free from all the wiles of the devil, from every grip that the enemy has, that God will free us all from that. And if you know someone who is in sin, maybe your own child even, pray for them with all your heart, like it's your own. If there's someone that you see that is doing harm to others, yes, you might need to speak up to that and bring it to the right authorities. And if you're not heard there, then keep going until this thing is brought into the light. I am not suggesting in any way that anyone be silent, not at all. But our words we speak must be spoken in love. It must be truth, and it must be spoken in love and for love's sake. And the gospel needs to be celebrated. And even with Jesus, he said, I did not come to judge the world. I came to save it. And that was when the sons of thunder, they were wanting to call down judgments from heaven. And he said, you don't know what spirit you're of. I came to save. I didn't come to judge. And we see the example of that with a woman who was caught in adultery. Oh my gosh, she was actually caught in the very act. She was doing it. She was transgressing. And so also, by the way, was the man, although he's not mentioned, but there's obviously a man involved too. But she was being condemned by the Pharisees, and according to the law, they had every right. They had stones in their hand. They were ready to stone her. And according to the law, they were righteous in doing. So Jesus did not resist the fact that was in the law, but he did say, you who are without sin, you throw the first stone. They all dropped their stones and they went their way. And Jesus turned to the woman, and he did not say to her, oh, don't worry about a thing. Just go and commit adultery. You're just fine. Everything's fine. He said, you go and sin no more. He said, there's one condemning you, but you go and you sin no more. Now, we've got to have that behavior. And yet, we know that when a leader, especially in a position of ministry, we're called to a higher standard. And personally, I feel that there's a lot of, especially particular types of sin, and especially when there's predators and stuff going on where there's abusive action and a misuse of the authority in a way that's destroying lives, that person should not only be dealt with and brought into the light and disciplined and dealt with in that way. And maybe that means even going to prison. And if that's the case, then let's do that. Let's not fall short of that. But also, I don't personally believe a person should go back into ministry. It would be like, having in a school system a teacher who is abusing children. They get caught, and then people say, okay, well, we're going to take you out of a teaching position for the rest of this season, but next year you can get back in the classroom. That would never happen, not even in the world. So it shouldn't happen here. So there are a lot of things that we need to have discussion on, that we need to pray into, that we're going to be maybe in disagreement on, but we can wrestle them through in love, and that we won't divide our hearts against each other. We won't hate each other. We'll love each other while we're in the process of working things through. A couple of days ago, I think it was yesterday and the day before, I put out a couple of videos, live streams actually, to just share the prophetic word I received back in November about the accuser of the brethren. Because in the midst of this very serious time, when we all need to be on the alert, when we need to bring light forth, we need to shine our light in the darkness, we need to see the exposure of sin, that in that we need to be very careful not to take on an accusative spirit, and also make sure that we're not falsely accusing, because the Lord showed me that there could be some of that coming. I'm not saying it's already happened. Maybe it's possible, but there could be some coming. This is the warning that I received in November. So I did 2 videos. The first one I actually removed. And the reason why is because I feel like I didn't share enough specific details or unpack things well enough. And so many people were taking offense and throwing out stuff at it because, and I'll take full responsibility, I probably didn't explain things well enough. So I took that down just because I didn't want to hurt people, make people feel unsafe. And then I did leave the second one up that had a little bit more explanation, although getting lots of hits. It's really interesting that I'm carrying a word about beware of the accuser of the brethren, to keep us safe. That's my heart, is to keep the body safe so that we can speak the truth in love, so that we can do things with our strength in that of bringing things into the light and going through proper processes. So that's my heart. And yet, when I'm bringing that prophetic word and trying to steward that word, I'm getting hit with a spirit of accusation. And it's been interesting. And I know that some of you have posted some challenging comments, which I left up, but the ones that were like spoken in a way that was just promoting a lot of negativity and judgment, and that I did remove those. I had my team remove those, go through them and remove them. So it's not that I don't want to hear your heart. I do. It's just that I do have a standard of values that I want love. I'm working on learning how to love well and what love looks like in any given situation. And so I want to make sure that as we're processing, that we're processing by listening well to each other, but also loving each other well. The other thing I wanted to address in those videos, a lot of comments I had that were saying, oh, you are supporting Joni Lamb. And I actually don't know a lot of detail about the Daystar situation. I just want to be honest with you about this. I am praying that truth will come into the light. And I know that many of you have been used to bring some truth into the light. And I'm thankful for that. I think that we need that. But we also need to be careful until everything's worked through, that we don't get angry or make accusations or say things in a wrong tone before everything is settled. And so I have never met Joni Lamb. I don't know her personally at all. In fact, I've never had anything to do with her or the network or her son or daughter-in-law, granddaughter. I have no contact whatsoever. I've never been on the program, never been on an interview. And so I want you all to know that I'm not defending anyone. The one thing I did say is that when a child is involved, because there's a very heavy situation that needs to be dealt with, of course, but we need to really pray for the child, because that child is going to carry the weight of this their entire life. I know what it's like to be in the midst of things. I know children who have been in the midst of this type of thing and have felt guilty for it, even when they have nothing to do with it. But it's just what goes on in their life and the trauma that comes with it, even on really small levels. Like even in divorce situations, oftentimes the children will feel guilty for dividing their mother and father. And so children love their grandparents, they love their parents. And then when the whole world is talking about division, the child feels like the weight is on them. That can be heavy. So I'm not trying to determine any verdict on this. There's a lot coming out. I do celebrate the truth, but I'm going to wait a little while before I make any final judgments, but I'm not for or against. I am saying, though, that we need to be careful that there's not like any kind of hatred that's coming across that would be misrepresenting the heart of God as we're processing. So I just want you to know I had nothing in my heart. I was not referring to the Daystar situation. I wasn't referring to anything specifically. I'm aware of a lot of different things that are going on right now. Some of them small that I know about, some of them larger, some of them are already blown up on social media. There is so much going on, and I am involved behind the scenes on some of these things, and there's a lot to be weighed up. So we all want the truth. We all want things that are hidden to be brought forth. We want victims to be safe and freed, to have their courage celebrated, all of that. But basically, my word wasn't putting anyone down. I am not accusing anyone. I know that people thought I was accusing people. I thought, oh my gosh, all I'm doing is sharing a word not to become an accuser of the brethren. That's all. And so it was very interesting to see what came at me, and all the comments that I had to have removed because they were accusative. And so I thought that that was very interesting. But I think that we can speak the truth in love and real love, even though these are very hard issues, that I believe that God is at work and he is going to reveal everything that needs to be revealed. We do not have to be silent at such a time, but we do have to be careful what we're speaking, because we will be held accountable for our words. And if we are bearing a false witness, if we are saying things that turn out at the end not to be true, then that is very problematic. And that is a grievous sin. As I said in one of the videos, is that the 10 commandments, one of them is don't bear false witness. And so we need to be careful, because it's one of the actual 10 commandments, along with some other really weighty ones. And so we just want perfection. That's all. Don't you want to be representing Jesus in a more glorious way, a more loving way? And I do want to celebrate every voice out there that's wanting justice and that is willing to raise the bar. And I know it's not easy when you're a whistleblower or when you're reporting on something that is difficult. It is hard. There's spiritual warfare that comes against you. People come against you. All of that happens. I understand that. But I think that we can do it with excellence. We can do it with an excellent spirit without taking up an offense that comes from, because we should be offended against sin, but we need to pray and intercede for everyone involved. And yes, we need love to touch the lives of the offender, whether that is putting them in jail or bringing the discipline that they need to keep everyone safe. But that's love too. That's love defined. And I want you to think about that. I'm obviously, because I'm carrying a word about beware of the accuser of the brethren, because he's coming in fury, I can't just throw that word out. I have to steward it. Some words that the Lord gives me to steward, I wish I didn't have them, because it would be easier for me personally. In fact, sometimes I feel like, God, I remember how easy it was when I was a brand new Christian. I just loved you so much, Jesus. I just went out on the street. I went to my neighbors. I baked them bread. I took them flowers. I talked about you, Jesus, around their coffee table. I walked the streets and found people I could share you with, Jesus. And, I just would put the kids down for a nap and open up the phone book and phone people to tell them about Jesus. And I was so happy, just happy telling people about Jesus every single day. And I thought, how did things get so complicated? How did things get so hard? And sometimes I wish I could just go back to the ease of that. Just, I love you, Jesus. Let's just go see you touch lives today. And, sometimes, I've thought, man, it would be easier in some ways just to, change my ministry mandate and apply at Walmart to be a greeter at the door, so I could greet people and love them as they come in, love them as they go out. What a great ministry that would be. It would be so much easier than some of the things we're called to. So I realize some of you are carrying very difficult things right now. And I take my hat off to you for being a voice for the Lord, and a voice for victims, and a voice for what's true. But in the midst of it, I am saying, can we please walk in God's love? And we reproduce after our own kind. So if you are angry and upset and offended, and you're just going to go after justice and push everybody back, and you're going to be the big voice, and you're going to tell people where it's at, and and that you're going to raise up people who are just like you. And some of it is not really representing Jesus' heart necessarily. Okay. And so what does that look like when we represent Jesus' heart? Speaking strong truth, speaking it in love, and thinking about everyone that is affecting, everyone in the body, so that we can have a stronger voice, a more loving voice, and a voice that is aligned to who God is and to his saving redemptive grace. I believe we're going to come through this. We're going to learn things. We're going to glean from each other. I want to open up my heart to glean from all of you. And some of you, I have to really dig deep, I'll be honest with you, to find that gold, because I have to weed through all the assault that's coming out of your mouth. But I'm looking for the gold, and I believe in God's presence in you and what he can do in each and every one of us. And so I know this is a hard season. It's disturbing. It is difficult. It's challenging. And I pray that every leader will know what to do. I pray that each of you will know what to do. I can't walk in anyone else's shoes because I'm not in their shoes, but I can be faithful to what God is speaking to me, how he leads me, what he tells me to say, what he tells me to do. And that's what God is calling each of us to. So I don't want to judge someone else, because before his own master, he stands or falls. And the Lord says, and stand he will, for the Lord is able to make him stand. That's out of the book of Romans. So we're not in other people's shoes. We think, well, if I was them, I would have done it this way. And maybe that would be the proper way. I don't know. Only God knows. And maybe you are a much better person than them and know better how to do things. That could be absolutely true. But let's just love each other well and forgive each other for the mistakes we've made. And I do humbly ask you to forgive me for any way that I spoke in a way that might have been misinterpreted to your own heart. The last thing I would have wanted to do was hurt you. And especially if you're a victim, I feel so bad that I didn't celebrate your courage like I could have in the last two videos. I'm so sorry, and I ask your forgiveness. But I'm celebrating your courage, and I have all along. I just didn't say it, and I truly am sorry. So let's continue to pray. There's more exposure coming. We need this exposure. It is not pleasant, and it always hurts. I don't know about you, but my heart is broken beyond belief, and yet I know there's still more coming. But we're going to put our focus on the Lord. We're not going to be moved. We're going to stand in him and for him. And he is going to strengthen us. And we're going to get through this. And on the other side of it, we will learn wisdom. We'll learn how to love better. We'll learn how to walk with him better. And he is going to remove the impurities out of his body. He's going to remove the tares from the wheat. And we're going to see harvest. And we need to pray for everyone who's watching right now too. The world's watching us. And so we need to pray. And if you're a leader and you're covering up sin, I am giving you a warning right now. It's going to be discovered. Don't cover it. Expose it. And if you are a leader or anyone that's living a double life and you've got secret sin going on, your sin will find you out. That is a given. Especially right now, God's already on it. He's already on it. And so it's so much better if you fall on the rock than if the rock falls on you. And also, I wanted to just say this, is a lot of times people will say, well, a person yes, was charged with this or that, but they're not doing it anymore, so they can go on. No, they have to make it right with those that they have hurt. And even at that, they might not be able to go on in ministry. It depends on the transgression. But if you've done someone wrong, you have to go to them and make it right. Ask them to forgive you. Talk about it. Make sure that you have humbled yourself before them. And even at that, you might not get reinstated into ministry or whatever. But we can't say, oh, well, it's just fine because they're not doing it anymore, when there's people who have been affected and never had it made right. And that's a situation with a person. And sometimes, people have said over the last couple of days too, why aren't you naming the person? Why aren't you naming the person? Well, there's so many people's names out there right now. I'm just thinking, let's just talk principles because they apply to everyone. And let's just not put it all on one person, because this could apply for many different people. But the one that I was involved in, on January 1st, 2020, it's like that was a statement made, but that person has never even admitted it. They haven't gone to the people that were hurt. They haven't done anything. It's never there's no wrongs been made right, and yet now they're being reinstated in ministry and endorsed by a leader that is well known. Are you kidding? Right? So these are just principles that we should be aware of. And I feel that let's look at these principles and live by them. Okay, so the reason I haven't mentioned any names up to now, or I've tried not to, is because I don't think God's calling me to do that. I think he's calling me to bring principles to the table so that we can apply them in any situation we might be in, because there are so many right now. You only know of a few that have become public, but there's so many others that might be becoming public, and many others behind the scenes that might never be public, but they're worthy to be addressed in the same way. And so we cannot allow sin to continue. And don't try to cover up your sin. If you have been in transgression and you're hurting, you might as well turn yourself in right now, because you are going to be found out. You will be exposed. So let's go for righteousness, for justice, and for truth with all of our heart. But let's be really careful, knowing, number one, knowing that this is a season that God is exposing. So we're not going to be losing our faith when he's exposing. We're going to stay focused on him. We're not going to be trusting in man. We're trusting in God. We're not going to lose our faith. But secondly, neither are we going to be led astray by the accuser of the brethren. We're not going to be led astray. And so both those things are important. And so let's walk in truth together for his glory, and know that we're so loved by him. He loves each and every one of you. All of you have a past. All of you have done things you're probably not proud of, or you wish you could redo. But God's grace is so sufficient for you, and his blood has covered you. His blood has forgiven you. And in that, we rejoice in that mercy. We rejoice in that salvation. But we don't go soft on sin. We address it. When it needs to be addressed, we address it. Amen.